You are listening to the Knightline Sports Network, brought to you by Travis Dever and the Dever team, 386-690-1636.
Knightline is brought to you by the Dever team, your source for New Smyrna Beach real estate and everything else New Smyrna Beach. Go to www.thedeverteam.com and call UCF alumni Travis Dever for all your New Smyrna Beach needs. 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636.
Welcome to UCF Knightline, your source for UCF sports and former player information.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Phegley coming to you from the 1148 studios, and this is Knightline 255. Joining me, as always,
Roger Phipps, and on this week's show, Draft Day Records, Recruiting Rhetoric, will the playoff picture get Biggie sized? We are the literal champions. The Tijuana Flats Hot Take of the Week, news and notes, and your questions on Ask Knightline.
Alrighty. Hey, did you see Chad Barr's thing about the word literal? Is that the new cool word to use? So, and you used it. I think it's hilarious that you used it after that. Okay. Anyway, he posted on Facebook something about, is this the new word? Because everybody is using literal or literally like all the time. So
that's funny.
I think it's funny because I've noticed the trend as well. So anyway, what a big week with the NFL draft going on. 5 players picked. We weren't sure. We had talked about this a bunch on either this show or Knightline at Night, and that's on WDBO 107.3 and AM 580, by the way, on Tuesday nights, 9 o'clock. But anyway, we have been talking about the draft quite a bit. We didn't get into it as much as we probably wanted to in the last couple of weeks, just because all kinds of stuff was going on, busy and all that stuff. So I'm glad to be back with you all. I'm glad that y'all are listening and all that stuff. But anyway, NFL draft. 5 players picked. That would be Richie Grant, A-Rob, Aaron Robinson, Trey Nixon, Jacob Harris, and Tay Gowan. Pretty good. I mean, what do you think, Roger?
I mean, it's a huge deal. When we were talking about this, I certainly wasn't expecting 5. Our good buddy Ben Stout had made this his hot take, so I guess it wasn't as much of a hot take that we actually got 5 to be drafted. I mean, we're talking about something that's never happened at UCF before. We've had 2 times that we've had 4 draft picks, but 5 is solid. It's huge, and it speaks to just how this program is growing and how much respect that it's getting as well.
Yeah, I saw something a little while ago, and it was something, I think I got to go back to Twitter because I think I retweeted it. It was something that UCF football put out, I believe. Oh, yeah, here it is. Changing the Narrative is the title, and it says 100% more than AAC teams this year for UCF. 80% more of Big 12 teams, 79% more than Big 10 teams, 79% more than AAC or ACC teams, 75% more than Pac-12 teams, and 57% of SEC teams. So we did pretty well with our 5. Richie Grant obviously going to the Atlanta Falcons, the 40th pick, which is really a big deal to be picked that high. I think I was one of the people that was saying that he would be the first one picked and that he would go pretty good. I thought maybe he would eke his way into the first round, but he was barely out of it. So I don't know where I left off. Richie Grant to the Falcons, Aaron Robinson to the New York Giants, Jacob Harris to the LA Rams, Tay Gowan to the Arizona Cardinals, and then Trey Nixon to the New England Patriots, which they're not the Patriots they used to be. But anyway, so far so good. I believe. I think that Richie Grant obviously will, do really well in Atlanta. I think that's the perfect spot for him, even though I'm not really an Atlanta fan. But I think that this is a really big deal that he was drafted where he was at the time that he was 40. He will make a lot of money. So,
yeah, $8.2 million with a possible signing bonus of $3.3 million.
Oh, you saw the numbers already? I didn't see that yet.
Yeah, Sports Watch already had them out there for him and for Aaron Robinson, but nobody else yet.
So how far is Aaron Robinson off of that then?
Well, he was picked with pick number 71, which was round 3, and his deal is worth $5 million with a possible signing bonus of $1.1 million. So significantly less.
Yeah.
But still, hey, that's a solid payday for two guys that come out of UCF, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Jacob Harris is the one that really is surprising, especially compared to the way that Trey Nixon got drafted. Trey Nixon, 7th round, 242 at the very end of the draft. Not Mr. Irrelevant that went to some guy from Houston, but Jacob Harris, 4th round, 141 pick to the Los Angeles Rams. We've been critical of Jacob Harris. I have, at least, about catching the ball. Imagine if he could catch the ball as well as some of these other guys did, because I pointed out to you guys, you and Ben, last night in a text message, Gabe Davis was drafted 4th round, 128th. And then Jacob Harris, 4th round, 141. You see how well Gabe Davis has done in the NFL? Imagine if Jacob Harris could do that well. He was drafted right around the same position. Wasn't nearly the receiver at UCF that Gabe Davis was. So I don't know if that's a knock on Gabe Davis or, good for Jacob Harris for showing out in that pro day. You know what I'm saying? Brandon Marshall, also 4th round, 119th. Who else here? Those guys.
Brandon Marshall and Gabe Davis were the two receivers that were 4th rounders before Jacob Harris was picked.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, that's good company to be in, is what I'm saying for Jacob Harris. Yeah. Not so great for Trey Nixon at 7th round, 242nd. It is what it is, I guess.
Well, what's interesting when you fall into that position is it better for you to go almost undrafted free agent to be able to pick which team and the best offer that you can get? Because around that time in the 7th round, they're making about the same money and nothing is guaranteed at that level. So it's an interesting conundrum for him. I'm happy he was actually picked, because that says something all in itself. But I think Trey was really, really hurt by his injury last season that kept him out of a lot of games. But at the end of the day, it's almost like you would almost want to be an undrafted free agent so you could have, you could compare what the offers were. Yeah. And when you're talking about receivers, the other big thing is Marlon Williams. Marlon Williams led the college football in receiving yards.
Had a horrible pro day, though. Horrible.
Oh, yeah, terrible.
Horrible. So, that's what did it to him.
Yeah, as much as Jacob Harris was helped, Marlon just really killed his draft stock during his pro day.
Yeah,
He did.
Go ahead. Going back real quick to Trey Nixon, he is going to have to show something that I don't believe that he showed too much of. And yes, I'm going to dog Trey Nixon. I don't care if y'all like him or whatever. I like him as a person. I just don't think that he showed the effort that he could the entire 100% of the time. I've said it before. I've called Trey Nixon the laziest player in the game because he would just kind of go out there and do his thing and not do anything extra, not diving for a lot of balls. At the beginning of the year, last year, when he was playing that first game because he got hurt, he was showing a little bit more of that, and I wondered if he would, start doing a little bit more of that this year. But, I mean, the injury did hurt him really bad. I just hope that he goes to the New England Patriots, knows that he's the underdog at the 7th round of 242, and goes out there and gives it his absolute all, because I don't think that we saw a lot of that at UCF.
Well, the interesting thing, I mean, obviously Brady's not there anymore, but the New England Patriots are known for developmental receivers. I mean, Brady himself was a 6th or 7th round draft pick, Wes Welker, all those big names that came through the Patriots. So the coaching staff there knows how to turn folks into winners.
I hope he does. I mean, I hope he goes there and is an all NFL Pro Bowler. I hope he does. I'm just saying that I worry about that with him. Maybe this is, I don't know. It's just my observation, and I think other people have had that observation as well. I don't think I'm the only one that doesn't think that he was, gave it his all on 100% of the plays. You know what
Well,
I'm
the good
saying?
news is he's going to have his opportunity, right? And not very many players do. So hopefully he makes the most of it and does what he can. I don't know, and we've talked about this in the past. I don't know how much of that was Heupel telling him to take the play off, because you saw a lot of receivers doing that in his system. But you're right. I mean, when it came to stretching for balls, and I know that was a frustration during the season, not last season, but the season before, we would talk about this, is he could have made that catch. I don't know how many times we use that quote during games, but there was a lot of that going on, because if he would have just hit that extra gear or stretched out a little bit, he would have had a play on the ball at least.
And I wonder if the NFL scouts saw that. I mean, they had to have seen that in his tape. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. I'm sure that hurt him. I'm glad that he got drafted, and I wish him the absolute best. I'm just saying, from my observation, and it's nothing personal against him. He's a great guy. It's just, we're here to analyze football, and that's my analysis of him. So Jacob Harris, the other thing, I mean, if he had the hands that some of these other guys did, as much as he is an athlete, he could be an absolute barn burner in the NFL. So I hope that they work on his hands immediately. And I think if they saw his tape, not just highlights, but the balls that he missed during the season, especially last year, the big ones that he missed, I think that they probably, would see that they need to work with him a little bit.
Well, the big thing with him, one, he hadn't been playing football. Remember, he came into Division I athletics on a soccer scholarship to Florida Gulf Coast, and then went to App State, and then came down, or Western Kentucky, one of the two, and then came down to us. Yeah. So, at this point, the big thing, the team had come out, and when they announced him, they had said that he was going to be a tight end, and there was some rumors about that, and he had said in one of his interviews that at the pro day, there were a bunch of teams that came up to him to ask him if he'd be comfortable with moving to tight end, which he has a lot of good qualities. He obviously has the size. He'd have to put on some weight for that. But he has route running ability, and he blocks pretty well. So if he can turn the corner and turn himself and transition himself into a tight end, he might have some staying power. I don't think it'll be at the wide receiver position in the NFL, but if he turns himself into a tight end and can take those quick passes in the flat and use his speed to create some separation, I think he might have some success.
What do you think of the drop of what we thought of Aaron Robinson probably being the first pick? I think a lot of people thought. I think you were one of the people that was really set on him being the first pick and had read a lot of things. What about dropping all the way to 71 in the third round when we thought that he may have been a first rounder or even a second rounder?
Well, there were some projections out there from some of the big names out there that were saying he was looking at first or second round. But my big thought was, I thought Richie Grant was for sure a first rounder. But that being said, there was one other safety that was rated above both of them. With Robinson, I think the big thing with him that's a positive and a negative for him is up until this point, he's been kind of a specialist. He's been a nickel quarterback, which in the NFL is an area of need because there's a lot of nickel that's played. But then the flip side of it is he didn't really have an opportunity to show very much of his other corner skills or traditional corner skills. So I think that's why he dropped. That being said, Richie Grant, I was hoping for him for a first round, high first round draft pick, or an upper level second, and he about landed where I thought he would. But cornerbacks typically have more opportunities than safeties do, and I know there was one safety ahead of Richie Grant that was rated a little bit higher than him, so he landed about where I thought. Aaron Robinson, I just think he was a victim of kind of being a nickel corner or defensive back entire time.
And then Tay Gowan going in the 6th round, 223rd. I think that taking last year off, and he had a great excuse for doing it. If I was in his situation, I probably would have done the exact same thing, but I think that hurt him a lot.
I agree with you there.
Yeah, 6th round, 223. I mean, he's a better player than that, I believe. So he will get a good opportunity there at Arizona, though, being a draft pick. So he should, have the ability to, make himself show them that he's a better player than 6th round 223. A couple of these guys, Trey Nixon, Tay Gowan, both have the opportunity to be the underdog in a way. If you're drafted 6th and 7th round, you're an underdog to make it in the NFL. And those guys know what it's like to be the underdog, and they need to, they have the opportunity to show it. So,
yeah, and I think for Tay Gowan, you hit the nail on the head. Obviously, he took a year off for medical reasons, some stuff going on with his family. But at the end of the day, I think he would have been one of the ones that left a lot of money on the table if he would have just come back for another year and played another year. I understand why he did what he did, but we go through this cycle every year and we say, okay, who should have come back, who shouldn't have. I think Tay Gowan left a lot of money on the table because of that.
And Trey Nixon had the opportunity to come back as well. In fact, all of them really had the opportunity to come back. So
the big thing, though, that
the COVID rules and getting the extra year of eligibility, they all had a chance to come back. But those two in particular would have probably made a lot of progress if they would have.
Yeah, and the big thing, too, when you get down into the 6th and 7th round, again, those are not guaranteed contracts, unlike the higher-end ones. And if a organization is going to invest $8 to $12 million in you as a draft pick coming out of the draft, you are going to have more opportunity and more chances to prove yourself if you don't do it year one. Whereas folks that are in the 6th, 7th round, it's a really financial, it's basically they're taking a gamble because they think there's something there. But if they don't, a lot of times those folks go to practice squad and have to earn their way back. So that's the other bad thing about being drafted in those later rounds.
All right, good things off the top of our heads for the beginning. Let's go on to Ask Knightline, though, and talk about, hear what people ask and talk about that real quick. Ask a Knightline is brought to you by Chad Barr Law. Chad is a UCF alumnus and diehard Knights fan. Chad Barr Law handles auto accident, slip and fall, and personal injury cases. Call Chad today at 407-599-9036 for a free consultation. That's 407-599-9036. Armor up and call Chad Barr Law today. All right, time again for Ask Knightline. We're answering questions you posted on our Facebook page or via Twitter at #AskKnightline. Going to start off with Tony C. at Kilotone407. So 2 recruits from the class of 2021 entered the transfer portal, meaning those 2 scholarships are wasted now, since both players already enrolled. Tight end and a defensive end. What are your thoughts? I think that this is going to happen more often as we go. I don't think... And a quarterback. There was a quarterback that... I don't even know his name. Gaston Moore.
Yep.
Irrelevant. And these 2 guys, Burboom was one of them. I don't even know who the defensive end was, to be honest with you.
Joker Gill.
Okay. Well, never heard of him. I mean, except that I know that he was, committed and coming in early. This is going to happen more and more as we go on through the years of this new quote unquote, and I'm using air quotes, you can't see them, free agency in college football. Everybody has the opportunity to transfer at least once and not have to wait to play. Anywhere they want to go, anywhere that they will take them, they can go. This is going to happen a lot, both directions. We're going to get players are going to leave. They've got to figure something out about the scholarship situation, though, and I don't know exactly the rules on this. I'm not an NCAA rule expert, so I'm not sure that those scholarships are actually wasted. I don't know. I'm telling you, I don't know about that. So if they are, that's kind of a bummer. But they're going to have to figure that out at some point to make this not happen with players and losing scholarship numbers. If that is correct, that's worrisome. But with these guys going, Burboom especially was like, did you see him during spring ball at all? I never remember seeing him or hearing anything about him. Or the other guy, the tight end, or the defensive end. I don't remember hearing anything about them. So I would assume that these guys, and I'm assuming, but I would assume that these guys were low enough on the depth chart that they realized, hey, wait a second, I'm not going to get any playing time. Maybe I can go someplace else and get some playing time. Maybe these groups, especially defensive end, is getting pretty good. Tight end is pretty good. Neither one of these guys were recruited by the current head coach. So that's another thing. Really, the current head coach has no loyalty to these guys at all. As far as especially with them being freshmen, totally new guys, doesn't know anything about them except tape that maybe he's found on these guys or seen them in practice. But these guys just aren't his guys. A lot of the guys aren't. Most of the guys aren't. But if you're way down on the depth chart and your opportunity to play is 0 to none, why not go someplace else? And this new ruling by the NCAA gives you the opportunity to do that. So good for them if they wind up going someplace else and getting playing time because they probably weren't going to get it here.
Well, I agree with all of that, Andrew, and I can confirm for Tony that they do count against this year's limit. I don't know how that works.
Where does it say that, though? Is that an NCAA rule?
That's NCAA rule, yes. Okay. I read that. I don't remember exactly where I read it, but I did read it earlier this week. What I don't know is what happens after this year, because technically they are on year-to-year scholarships that are just basically renewed. So I don't know how that counts against the total count. What I will say, if you go through all 4 of these, let's just talk about them real quick. As you mentioned, Gaston Moore, he was a guy that basically was a clipboard holder. So he was just standing on the sideline, and he really doesn't have an impact on anything, really. When we're talking about tight end, remember, we've been loading up on tight ends. And here's the thing, too, guys, that you have to remember. We've been celebrating how much we've been leveling up by Gus being here, whether it's talking about Big Cat or some of the other folks that he's bringing in. That's going to cause some of these guys that would have been good enough with the previous staff to kind of look away. Tony Forrest was the other one, and Nathan Borboom. I remember we were excited about Borboom, but I think we had 6 tight ends going into spring. So if you lose 2 of them, you're down to 4 tight ends. If you're down in number 5 and number 6 on that rotation, it probably makes sense for you to look. And the interesting thing is with Joker Gill, he went back to his JUCO school. So he came up, got a scholarship here, and was here basically for the first part of the year. And then now he's going back to that JUCO. So I don't know if that's just performance or grades or a combination of both. You would think that he would put his name in the transfer portal if grades weren't involved, and transfer to another Division I school. But that's to your point, Andrew. We are bringing in and transferring more people in at a higher level, which pushes people down the depth chart, which is a good thing for us. But it is going to create a little bit of a vacuum there in the number of scholarship players on the roster during that time. But the hope is, part of the reason you get so many scholarships is you're not going to hit on every single player. So if we're bringing in transfers, and quite frankly, 4 out of the 5 people that we got drafted over the last week were transfers. So if we're bringing in a higher caliber of transfers, then that's okay if we lose it, because we may not have as many scholarship positions, but we're hitting at a higher rate with those starters or people in the 2 deep.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to look at that rule because I want to read that myself and see, how that works, because that, is going to be a huge problem if they don't deal with that. For those players counting against your scholarship. If they're gone, I don't see any reason why that would count against your use of scholarships if those players aren't actively on your team or on your campus. You know what I'm saying? That's weird. So,
well, and I think because the rule
I'm not saying I don't believe you, but I want to read it myself.
No. I think the key is that they're on year, and I don't want to speak out of turn, and we'll look at this, but I think the key here is that they're on year-to-year scholarships. Technically, they're not on a 4-year ride; they're just renewed every year. So if they're here during that season or that period, and they're going to school and they're enrolled, it counts against that particular period. And again, I'm going to jump out on a limb here with this because I haven't confirmed it. I think because they're on a year-to-year scholarship, they don't count going forward. So after that year or academic year is over, I think that it doesn't count against it. But I didn't want to say that because I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, interesting. Well, we'll see. And this is one of the other things that is really weird about all this. So it's going to mess a lot of stuff up if they don't get it all under control. Chad, UCF Chad at Chad UCF. This is kind of a question and an answer at the same time. Yeah, how did we have 5 players drafted and lost so many games? First of all, we didn't lose that many games in these players, years at UCF. A lot of these players were on that 2017 team. At least Richie Grant. I don't know about the rest of them, but Richie Grant definitely was. I mean, yes, we've gone, 2 years without being undefeated? 2 years without being undefeated, and we lost, a total of 8 games? Something like that?
Yeah.
Right? That's not that many games compared to most other college football programs. I've been saying this the entire time. These players were good players. There's all kinds of reasons we lose games. It's not because of the 5 players that were drafted.
Well, it's not a team of 5 either. That's the other thing. Like, Richie Grant can't cover the entire defensive back core. I mean, if you look at that BYU game, you had a ton of freshmen that were out there that were playing and learning, and throughout the season, the depth just wasn't there this year for the defensive backfield. So when you're looking at it from that perspective, you're talking about 3 folks that were on the defensive side of the ball, one of which did not play the entire season. The other 2, did play, but they're not the entire defensive backfield. And then on the offensive side of the ball, again, we mentioned this earlier, Trey Nixon was out. So, to me, there were a lot of things that went into this year. I think what we've learned a lot as well, championship football requires people to be bought in and requires people to play as a team. That's what made 2017 so special, is you saw who the cast of characters were and what they did to win. There was just a feeling about that team. Last year's team didn't have that. And you've heard a lot with people that have gone, have left the program or completed their UCF careers. And then you've heard about how, the offense and defense are now closer than they were under the previous staff and all of that other fun stuff. That all plays into winning games. And the games that we lost, we didn't lose them by a whole lot. So it wasn't like we were demolished. It's just one of those things that I think timing is of the essence. And we got to remember, it is a team sport, not an individual sport, for a reason. Absolutely.
I agree. All right, so I think we answered that one. And then Brian W. Peterson, at Brian W. Peterson on Twitter, asks, of the 5 UCF players drafted this week, which will have the most success in the NFL and why? I'm going to start off, obviously, by saying Richie Grant, because he's in the best position to do that. And I think with the current situation in Atlanta, where they had one of the absolute worst pass game defenses last year, I think he will start. That's going to be maybe kind of a hot take from me, but I think he will start at safety for them next year, and it sounds like they will build around him there, is what one of the reporters said to him in his initial press conference. Informed him he didn't know, or he didn't, wasn't aware that they plan on building a defense around him at the safety position, or at least the backfield around him. So I think it's a no-brainer that he would be the one.
Well, I agree with you. That would have been my choice as well. But and you're right on all of those, everything you said. But I just think it's more about the ceiling and quality of the player. Richie Grant, I think, is we've been saying this for a couple of years now, is an NFL caliber player, and he played that way, and he's playing it in the safety position. I think Aaron Robinson, he may have longevity in the league. If he gets pigeonholed into that nickel spot, he may have a great career at that nickel spot, but he won't be as involved as a safety position, because even the Atlanta coaching staff said we can bring him down. He does well. He has great instincts inside the box or rushing, and he has great instincts when he's playing out in the field. So if he's playing both ways, I think he can have a bigger impact. I think that the rest of the folks are going to be developmental type people. And, as we said earlier, the 6th and 7th rounders are going to have to fight their way. And it might take a couple seasons for them to even get on a roster rotation where they're playing in the 2 or 3 deep, let alone starting. I think with the investment that Atlanta has had in him, his capabilities and what we've seen out of him as he's played UCF football, I think Richie Grant will have the better career and the most impact for a lot of reasons. So that's kind of my take on it.
All right. I think that's good. That is Ask Knightline. Let's take a break real quick, and we'll be right back, and we'll talk a lot more about this NFL draft.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Knightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chad Barr Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chad Barr Law, our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices, Altamont Springs.
Looking for more out of your Porsche? Look no further than Flat6Motorsports.com. They have the widest selection of aftermarket Porsche parts anywhere in the world. With over 85 product lines and in-depth expertise, Flat6Motorsports.com is your one-stop shop for any Porsche performance needs. Whether you're shopping for intakes, exhausts, suspension, or tuning, they have you covered. Flat6Motorsports.com is the premier Porsche aftermarket specialist. Check them out at Flat6Motorsports.com. All right, that's a real car, by the way, at the end of that. That was real.
And it sounds amazing.
That was real audio. That is our good friend John Swift's Porsche, and that's his company. So if you have a Porsche, go there and talk to him. Flat6Motorsports.com. He has all kinds of really cool stuff, and really good guy, UCF guy. You heard him on here. He used to do the spot. It was like a stats spot. I don't even remember what we called it. It was I don't know. It was John.
It wasn't by
spot.
the numbers, was it?
It was something. I don't know. It was something like that, I think. Crunching numbers. That's what it was. Crunching the numbers. Remember I had the little keyboard sound in there?
Yep, I remember.
That was good. That was good stuff. All right. So back to the draft. One of the things I wanted to play, if you didn't get to see it live or even taped, here is the sounds from NFL or not NFL.com. You can find it on NFL.com as well, but from the NFL Network, ESPN, ABC, wherever you were watching it, here is the actual audio from when Richie Grant was picked and what they said about him.
With the 40th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons select Richie Grant, defensive back, UCF.
Richie Grant, a great story. 2-star prospect out of high school, turns himself into a 3-year starter. His uncle played at Alabama, and then in the Canadian Football League. Lewis, let's take a look at what he can do.
Well, he can do everything, Greeny. This is a guy who can play both safety positions. He can play down in the box and play the star and the money in nickel and sub. Look, the pro comparisons right here are to the Honey Badger and to Malcolm Jenkins. And you see here, he can match up against tight ends one-on-one. Why? Because he has great route anticipation and great finishing skills, and he does it like with his eyes closed. You see here, Malcolm Jenkins against Gronk. The ability to slingshot yourself underneath down here in the red area where you can't get boxed out by big tight ends like that. And then the ability to play center field. We saw this clip earlier. Just watch the distance he covers. Watch him read the quarterback's eyes. He's already gone. Quarterback hasn't even let the ball go yet. And you see him finish with the interception. The interception, not the PBU, the interception. Tyrann Mathieu, one of the very best at doing this. A guy who will read quarterbacks, read route combinations, and he will take your lunch money, man. And he will give it right to Patrick Mahomes and say, hey, go ahead and score. This is a great pickup right here by Terry Fontenot, the general manager, and Arthur Smith, the head coach. This defense was awful last year. Awful in terms of passing yards allowed and passing TDs. Richie Grant will help reduce that.
Wow. The names that he threw out there, that they threw out, especially Tyrann Mathieu, I'm a huge fan of his because he's on my team, obviously, my Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm very aware of what he does and the exciting way that he plays. That was a great comparison of a player like Richie Grant, personally. And I think Richie Grant can be just as big as Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, in the NFL, and I cannot wait to see it. I'm going to be watching some Atlanta games, unfortunately. I have to watch all these teams now that I really wouldn't watch otherwise. I know that some of y'all are Atlanta Falcons fans, but not particularly a team that I would watch normally.
I agree with you, and I guess that's a good thing for the NFL, right? But it's funny. I also find myself watching NFL games that I wouldn't normally watch just to watch. I mean, Bills games are a perfect exple. I would have never watched a
Seattle
Bills game.
games the last couple of years that I didn't particularly want to watch.
Yep, exactly. But our hometown heroes are on those teams, and that's a good thing that happens. And for them, once their college experience is over, that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't continue to root for them as people. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So for me, I'm the same way. I'll watch entirely too much NFL football just so in games I would not ordinarily be interested in, just so I can watch our guys.
Yeah. Well, him being picked 40th overall puts him with some pretty good company in UCF history as well. You know what I'm saying? So Mike Hughes was drafted in the first round, obviously 30th, but that was the highest one besides him. So drafted very high by UCF standards for defensive backs.
DBU for sure. I mean, just because
it
they
has
weren't all...
been. I mean,
yeah,
if you think about it, Shaquille Griffin was drafted in the third at the 90th pick. Josh Robinson, third round, 66th. Asante Samuel, fourth round, 120. Who else here? Clayton Geathers, fourth round, 109. Guys that have, and I think I said Hughes, first round, 30th, but these guys... AJ Bouye as well. But these guys have, and I don't even see him, they left him off the list here. UCF did in their email. But these guys that were drafted a lot lower than him in some cases really made, had really nice NFL careers. So crazy. It's crazy. Crazy to think. And I know that he's that good of a player. I honestly expected him to go a little bit quicker than that. I thought he would sneak his way into the first round. But being just a couple picks off of the first round is pretty good.
Well, three were the first 3 picks went to quarterbacks, so there was 3 positions right off the board then, and I think there was only one other safety that was taken before him. So I think he did really well considering all of the players that were out there that he was contending with, and I think the NFL saw the same thing that we saw in him. So I fully expect Richie Grant to be a name that people know around the league.
Yeah, 291 tackles at UCF. 4th in UCF history for 7 forced fumbles, and 5th with 10 career interceptions. His 6 interceptions in 2018 ranked 3rd in the nation, and had over 100 tackles during his sophomore season. So he will definitely be missed at UCF. I will, it's one of the positions that I'm the most concerned with being open this year. From him leaving and going to the NFL. So, well,
I mean, safety is the quarterback of the defensive backs, right? So that's the other part about it, because we've had some young guys. I mean, they've had a year to mature.
Arguably, because I would say the middle linebacker personally.
That's of the defense, but not the defensive backs, right?
They're still considered. Well, okay, I still consider them defensive backs, but
interesting.
Well, I mean, technically they're behind the line. They're linebackers. I mean, maybe they're not in the. I don't know. Whatever.
But you're right. I mean, how many times have we seen and how many times have we failed at having linebackers try to cover receivers and not be able to do a good job of it?
Exactly. So, yeah, whatever. I mean, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, that's how I look at it. Anything behind the line to me is a defensive back. And that was instilled in me a long time ago, way back in football. So I played linebacker when I was in, the Pee-wee version of football. We called it Pee-wee. They call it something else around here, I think. But
Pop Warner.
Yeah, we didn't use the Pop Warner system. Ours was just Pee-wee. So it was fun. I had a blast playing then. Okay, on to Aaron Robinson, and we have his audio as well.
With the 71st pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Aaron Robinson, defensive back, UCF.
There's your guy, Burger, from the same high school as Jerry Jeudy and Jason Pierre-Paul.
Love him. Talk about a guy that can play inside in the slot. Physical guy. Anytime you're going to play inside in the nickel position, you got to be physical. You got to have great hips, great feet to be able to mirror inside. And the thing I love about him, not only will he hit you, he will strike you. Not afraid of contact. Find guys male like that on the inside, not afraid of contact. You can blitz him. Reminds me a lot of Rondé Barber, who we had down in Tampa. Physical in the run game, to cover in the pass game. You can put him against tight ends, slot receivers, but also bring him on blitzes and make plays in the backfield.
Guy's career at Alabama. So you think about it, when he came to UCF, he really, Tay Gowan opted out. Tay Gowan's another UCF corner that will be drafted within the next round or two. We saw Richie Grant come off the board in round 2. So this UCF secondary supplying the NFL with an awful lot of talent. Grant went to Atlanta, 40th pick over. Like I said, Tay Gowan has the length as well to be a pretty good cornerback in the National Football League. And Aaron Robinson, what a job he did down there for the Golden Knights.
Wah, wah, wah. They were doing really well until he threw that in at the very end. It was a great, thing until he ruined it by saying Golden Knights.
I will say this. I mean, if you're a recruit and you're watching the draft, and you're defensive back, and you just heard him say there's 3 of them that are going to be going, and, all the glowing praise that came for that, wouldn't you be interested? I mean, you were a defensive back recruit at one time. Would that float your boat?
Absolutely. Absolutely it would. And they're watching. All these guys are watching, I think UCF should make a big deal about this DBU thing, but then again, you don't want to leave the rest of the players out and say that, because they're defensive backs, they can't be drafted or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
there's an issue with going too far with that, but I think we can do it here. I mean, DBU for sure. We thought we were wide receiver U there for a little while. And then
Back
all
in
of a
the
sudden,
Bortles days.
Yeah, then all of a sudden the DBs come along. So, So Aaron Robinson has a great opportunity there as well in New York. I'm not too horribly familiar with New York because they've really not been that great the last couple of years. So
once Eli moved on, that was that was a big change for them.
It was kind of going down with him at the helm for the last couple of years as well.
The interesting thing is the Giants actually moved up 5 picks to get him. So they were expecting him to come off the board. They actually traded in order to get in position to draft him. So obviously they saw a lot of value in him.
Yeah, that's good. Very cool. All right. Well, the rest of them, I didn't really get the audio from. Sometimes, in fact, I went through the draft footage because I recorded it all, and a lot of times they would, as the picks were coming in, they would be talking about a pick that happened, many picks before because they were really flying off the board at that time. It's a little bit different once it gets into the latter rounds. So I did not get the audio for those. But I do have this thing, and this is Richie Grant talking. It's a little bit of a long clip. It's like 3 minutes long, but you should listen to this. It's clips from Richie Grant's press conference and basically just an emotional response from him. It's really cool. Give it a listen.
Dream come true, man. Blessing. My journey, man. But just went through so much, and so grateful that they took a chance on me. I'm forever grateful to the Atlanta organization. They got a dog. They got someone who's hungry. I'm just ready to work, man. I'm ready to come in there and compete. I'm ready to work. I'm ready to get to work. I said a prayer and broke down. It's just so humbling, man. It's just so amazing to be in this position. I mean, you can't like rehearse this. You know what I'm saying? It's just gonna happen how it happens, and the tears just started flooding. And we all just really excited. We going to Atlanta, baby. It's still in the South. To be completely honest, my mind wasn't even. I don't even know. Like I was just coming up. The words were just coming out. Like it was just so surreal, man. I just couldn't even think. I just knew I was excited. I just knew I was ready to come in and play. Those are the two feelings I had. The words were, I don't know, man. I just couldn't even formulate the words, man. I was just excited. Just all the hard work, man. Everything I've been through, my family, all the struggles I had personally, that I don't open up to people about often. Just so much that could have went wrong, And just God bless, man. He just blessed me. He blessed my life to be able to just stay on track. And keep that hunger, humility, humbling me at times where I got too big, just keeping me on track. Because, his plan is the ultimate plan. And he been keeping me to that. Just my journey, man, it's just been just so much, man. I started off defeating the odds. My mama had me at 14, and she could have aborted me, but she didn't. That's God's plan. So I started off defying the odds, and that's pretty much how my life been, my entire life. People say, "Oh, he's too small. Oh, he's not fast enough. Oh, he ain't smart enough. Oh, he didn't play enough tough guys. Whatever. It's always something, and I'm always defying the odds, and that's thanks to God. I got God in my corner, and with Him, everything is possible. So that moment, man, while I was saying that prayer, all that just rushed in on me, and I just couldn't hold it back, man. Like I said, you can't rehearse this. It happens how it goes. We doing it, baby. We were Falcon, baby. Yeah. Man, I've been in Atlanta a few times, I actually trained in Atlanta for a little bit over COVID, during COVID. Got to get the lay of the land, get my way around the scene and stuff like that. I already knew. I said, I'm going to be a Falcon. I said it during COVID. I said, I'm going to be a Falcon. I know it. And like I said, God make things happen, man. He provide miracles, and this is one. So forever grateful to Atlanta. Thank you so much. That's word, baby.
All right. Well, awesome to hear the emotion come out. And obviously that's something that he had been working for. All these guys have been working for, since being little kids playing football for the first time. So it's awesome to see these guys drafted, and I hope that they all go out there and make these teams and do, some good. Haven't seen much more as far as free agents except for Marlon Williams. So we shall see about the rest of them if they get an opportunity. But Marlon Williams was basically right as the draft ended, he was picked up by the Texans, maybe even before. So very cool for him. Hopefully he gets a chance to show what he's made of, and I think that he will out there. He is a guy that performs on the field, obviously didn't perform too well off the field as far as the pro day, but we've all seen what he can do on the field, and I think that's where he really shows what he's made of. So he will get an ample opportunity to do that.
Agree 100% on that.
All righty. Well, what's next? Do you have anything else to add to the draft stuff?
The only one quick thing that's just an interesting tidbit that I saw of the last 5 drafts, rounds 1 through 4. So last 5 drafts, last 5 years, rounds 1 through 4. You're talking about the big 4 in Florida and UCF starting to be on par with FSU and UM and et cetera. Here's another indicator of that. In rounds 1 through 4 over the last 5 years, UF has had 21 players drafted. FSU has had 11. Miami has had 10. And UCF has had 9. The Cows, only 2. But my point is 9, 10, and 11. So that recruiting advantage that they used to enjoy. Now, obviously, us not being in a power conference, quote-unquote power conference, is still an issue, but clearly we're making strides, and those are things and stats that these coaches can sell, especially as Gus is going out and saying, why not UCF? These are things that the coaches can sell, and I think it again shows the growth of the program, the exposure, everything that's built off of the Blake Bortles years, and then the 2017 season, and then the 2018 season. The more and more we're growing, the more opportunities there are, and there's going to be less and less barriers for us to go out there and get some of these great kids.
Absolutely. So, but by the way, you mentioned USF. How many picks did they have that were drafted in this draft? I don't remember seeing anything about it.
Yeah, I was going to say I didn't think they had any. I mean, think about it this way.
Boy.
In the last 5 years, in rounds 1 through 4, they've only had 2. So that should tell you in 5 years.
It's almost like they're championships that they've won.
Well,
0.
at some point, I want to make sure. Well, actually, they just won one, and I don't really like saying this.
Oh, not a football championship.
No,
nothing
they won
in football. That's what we're talking about.
Remember last year we won the cheerleading championship. This year, the Cows came out of nowhere and actually won this year's championship. UCF placed second by 0.03 or 0.04 points, and Kentucky, it's usually UCF and Kentucky placed a distant third. So, unfortunately, they actually have a trophy in their case now.
Well, it's for cheerleading, though. I mean, cheerleading's cool and all that, and we've been national champions I don't know how many times. So,
I think 3 or 4.
Yeah. Well. By the way, if you're watching the men's soccer game, they won 2-1. So that's good. And moving on to the Sweet 16 for the second consecutive season.
Super exciting.
Really cool.
Happy for those guys.
Yep,
they were ranked, and at the beginning of the season, they I wasn't expecting much. I don't know if you guys remember, but earlier on in the season, I was kind of talking them up before we got into the regular season, and then they just kind of fell apart. But then they kind of put it back together again. They're ranked as well, and as you said, for the second consecutive year, they are in the third straight year they're in the tournament. Second year they're going to the Sweet 16. So that program is definitely moving in the right direction.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Very good. Okay. What else?
Well, next I had some recruiting news. So little bits and pieces that are coming out. There's been a lot of uncertainty regarding visits and stuff like that. We saw Gus and the coaches start to come out and say, hey, we've got official visits scheduled for June, but we didn't really have any official approval from the NCAA. Well, not only did the NCAA approve visits, they will resume officially on June 1st, but they also made a controversial rule that is really going to be interesting. They have allowed now unofficial visits. They provided a waiver for those folks to allow kids to work out in front of the coaches. So that was not allowed before. But what's going to end up happening is a lot of these kids that couldn't participate in camps and weren't on people's radars, the teams themselves and the players are not going to have to use official visits to evaluate the players. So, that's going to, in the past, a player had 5 official visits, and during the unofficial visits, they couldn't be evaluated by the staff. So I don't know how that's going to play for us, because there may be kids that we had recruited and we got committed that did not have the opportunity to get tape or play in front of some of the other schools. But I'm wondering how that's going to affect us and vice versa.
Yeah, well, that is interesting that they've allowed that to happen. There's a lot of very interesting things that the NCAA is doing. NCAA, I usually say that mixed together there. It's very interesting what they're doing with all this stuff. I think that they need to make some rules a little bit more on these things, though, especially with this transfer portal thing, because it's going to get out of hand pretty quickly if they don't. And you never know what some of these other rules that they're coming up with, how those can get out of hand and misconstrued as well.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
Our compliance people, for sure, at UCF and every school are really going to have their heads on a swivel, I like to say, and really, really know what's going on with these rules and be able to prevent, their teams from and their schools from making accidental NCAA violations. So.
Well, it's going to be really interesting on campuses, right, where for these coaches that have spent time virtually recruiting these kids. And if that opens the door for some of them to flip, because now it's basically they can go to any school they want, whereas before they could only have it for five official visits. Now they can go to any school that they want and perform in front of the coaches.
Yeah.
So it's going to be real interesting. And then the other thing, we mentioned this on the radio show, but we have obviously not been on for a couple of weeks. We have been consistently talking about Cam Moore, who was Brandon Moore's brother at Seminole High School. And, we were all wondering and had been talking for a few shows as to why Cam had not received a scholarship offer. But good news is UCF has offered him a scholarship. He's a 6'2" offensive or outside linebacker from Seminole High School, right up the road from you, Andrew. And it sounds like UCF heard us and they've officially offered him. So that's exciting news. And then finally in basketball recruiting, since the last we spoke, Johnny Dawkins brought in, and I'm going to probably murder this, so I apologize in advance, Ed Xavier Rhodes. He's out of Texas. He's a forward, 6'9", 3-star, and he had a lot of great offers. So he signed his letter of intent, and super excited about getting him on the floor.
Absolutely, yeah. Good recruiting stuff there. By the way, for sure in the basketball mecca of UCF, definitely a big deal there. To get the kind of the guys that he's starting to get. Johnny Dawkins has turned on the recruiting thing, I think, a little bit more in the last couple of years, getting guys,
especially the high school recruits.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. Versus just bringing in transfers. The transfer portal is going to heat up there as well, though, so we'll have to keep our eye on what happens there. I think spring sport, which I don't know, it's not I think it's considered a spring sport, basketball.
No, it's a fall sport.
Is it a fall sport?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess it is because it starts in like November or whatever. But May 1st was the deadline to enter the transfer portal for guys. So from what I just read, May 1st, and then spring was something else.
And we really aren't losing anybody material from that anyway. Moses Bowl was one of them.
Spring sports is July 1st. So
yeah.
It says starting in 2022. So I don't know if that must not have kicked in yet, but whatever. It's so confusing because they keep changing the freaking rules. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's so much.
Well, they've been the same for so long, and then all of a sudden it's, and they're playing it by the seat of their pants. And going back to your point before, they're playing with fire.
They are.
Because at the end of the day, there's long-standing repercussions for this. It's going to last for at least 2 to 3 years if they are just doing it doing the changes just for the players that went through COVID.
It doesn't sound like they are, though. I mean, I haven't read anywhere where it says it's just for the 2021 season. So
right, and that's what I mean. I mean, they have to be more specific. And if they're not, then what's going to end up happening is, I think there's going to be a lot of unintended consequences that these guys didn't think about because they're just out there making changes without any kind of caps or expirations or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, I haven't had time to read into a lot of this stuff. I've been really busy, but I'll have to make some time, I guess, to try to understand a little bit about this a little bit more. But it definitely brings this brings free agency into college sports, basically. And I've been saying that since this all was a rumor that they were going to do this. And even when the transfer portal really came to light, it's been around for years. I mean, there's always been transfers for I don't know how many years when that started, probably a long time ago. But it's just different now, especially because, people are aware of who goes into the transfer portal and who doesn't. You know what I'm saying? That was never really readily available information. Now the 24/7 Sports has most of it on there. Although I've been looking for these guys that went in there, they haven't updated their transfer portal stuff lately, I don't think. So none of those guys that we've been talking about that are in the transfer portal for football are even on the 24/7 thing right now. So hopefully they update that at some point. So it's a bit confusing, obviously. But I guess, they have to work it out or, I think this personally, and I don't want to open a can of worms here, but I think that decisions like this by the NCAA are at some point going to piss off a lot of conferences. And we've been talking about it for years, about schools leaving and conferences leaving the NCAA behind. That could be crazy. It could be good in a way and bad in a way. You could easily, by doing that, honestly, with all the players getting paid for their name, image, and likeness, it would almost create like another professional sport. So it could be very interesting if stuff like that starts to happen as repercussions of the new rules that the NCAA is making.
Well, I mean, if you went that far, would the likes of ESPN or whatever throw the money at a separate conference like that, or would they keep it?
Yeah, of course they would.
Exactly.
Because
so that means even less money for everybody else.
Yeah, but that's what everybody would want to watch, I would think. And you're going to get really left out if you're not in that group. Just like, schools are left out of not being in the quote-unquote Power 5.
Right.
So that would even create further divide. But then again, I guess, the positives could be for the teams that were left behind. Maybe there could be a true playoff.
Right.
Just like, I'm watching the FCS playoffs right now on TV. It's great football because it's a tournament. It's a real tournament. I don't even know if this is honestly sometimes lower level football. This is just as good a football that's played on any Saturday in the FBS. So, and a lot of players that are on these teams in the FCS could easily be on teams that are in the FBS. So that's my bandwagon for that.
Let's hope we can at least get the G5 label off of us.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, and something that's happened that's fairly recent within the past week or so, the College Football Playoff Committee got together, and it appears, based on what they're saying and what's coming out of that meeting, that after this current cycle, they are definitely going to expand, and the preferred model is the 12-team model. So not going to an 8-team playoff, not going to a 16 playoff, but going straight into a 12-team playoff, which is really, really interesting because that would make the argument extremely strong to get an auto bid for at least the quote-unquote G5. If not the G5, then hopefully, and what Oresco's been pushing recently, he's been out there grandstanding, is make it a true P6 and give the AAC an auto bid, which would be extremely interesting. So I think that's the least likely scenario. I would think that if it does get pushed through, the minimum we would get would be an auto bid for the G5. And if the current structure in UCF didn't get moved up at some point, at least we'd have a path, but it would be a difficult path. You'd probably play the number 1 seed or number two seed or something like that early on. But it'd be really interesting and change a lot of dynamics out there. UCF could legitimately say, hey, we have a path to the national championship, which is part of the reason why other coaches can use that against us currently, because there is no true path. I mean, Gus can say it all he wants, but realistically speaking, the undefeated season and the 2018 follow-up season proved, without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, that there's no way in the current model that a quote-unquote G5 team will make it. So
why would they, real quickly, why would they stop at 12, though, instead of going to 16 like they do for the FBS or FCS championship?
Well, the big argument is how long can you lengthen the seasons for quote-unquote player safety? And the other big thing was...
You shorten the regular season.
Right. And then the other thing was that they wanted to make sure, for a long time, college football has tried to protect the bowl system. And what you're seeing now
broken.
is... Yeah.
It's very broken, especially when they're begging teams to play in bowls, letting teams into bowls that weren't really eligible. You know what I'm saying? To try to fill those bowls. And a lot of the bowls nobody wants to watch. A lot of them are really
just
boring.
Advertising revenue for whoever. I mean, ESPN owns 40 of the bowls, and the only reason they put them on is for the ad revenue.
Yeah, exactly.
So at the end of the day, what you've heard for the first time, and this again came out of the meetings and what I was reading this week, they don't care as much about the bowl system. I mean, if they just folded in the major bowls into that 12-team playoff, and then shorten the season by one game, because some already play 9, some play 10, or take one of the preseason games away and shorten it to 3, then you've got your schedule squared away. But it seems that bowl system is not going to be as protected, and they are definitely, from everything everybody's saying coming out of that meeting, including the commissioners and ADs, is they're all saying that they want to expand, and right now 12 is the number. So that's really, really interesting. If the AAC can obtain an auto bid, I mean, right there, that would completely change the dynamic. Oresco said that he's open, which is different again, that he's open to 14 teams in the AAC. Now, the question is, who would you bring in? Because at that point, you would want to strengthen the conference as much as possible to guarantee that the AAC, if it wasn't an auto bid, got the auto bid 100% of the time. So I'm guessing you'd probably want a Boise or BYU.
I just think that they should move this straight to 16 and do it just like the FCS does. It would just make so much more sense, personally.
I agree with you.
I mean,
auto bid for everyone.
Auto bid for the conference. Yeah, just
the conferences.
Yeah, well, the best teams. I don't even think you would have to have auto bid at that point. It would be the best teams. I mean, in the FCS, I don't think anybody has auto bids. I mean, they're ranked 1 through 16, and it's that simple. They play a playoff, and then it crowns a true national champion. I mean, these games are great. This is one of my favorite. I mean, it's now because it's this time of year this year, but it normally never is. But I love to watch the playoffs in the FCS Division 2 and Division 3 have great tournaments. For the life of me, I cannot understand why they can't figure this out in the FBS. I know it's because of the bowls, obviously, but they've got to do something to make this right. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Well, I think it's the bowls, and I think it's because, remember, everybody, the playoff is actually an invitational. It's not an NCAA sanctioned event.
Right.
So
neither
ESPN,
are bowl games.
Right. ESPN has the interest of their interest is in getting the maximum number of viewers to any particular game, which is why they have it and why they've invested so much into it. So that means that you're going to want to engage different regions of the country, right? So that's why they have Power 5. That's why they have a West Coast team. They have the West Coast. They have the Pac-12. They have the Big Ten. They have the Big 12 in different regions of the country. And so what they want to do is get those teams in of those 5 conferences because they have the biggest fan base and most established fan bases that are probably going to watch the game. And then regional interest involved as well. So that's why they have that's why they've instituted those auto bids. And realistically speaking, if they did do it that way, because it's an ESPN invitational, I can almost guarantee you that no G5 would go above ranking number 16 at that point if they did it that way, because the money is just too much to be had.
Well, that's the problem then. The problem is money. In college sports, the problem is money. And,
agreed.
And what are they going to do with all this free agency stuff? And then, I'm sorry, I know a lot of you are going to disagree with me on this, but the name, image, likeness thing, I'm not a fan. I'm still not a fan. I'll never be a fan. You can tell me and argue with me everything that you want to do with that, but amateur athletes should be amateur athletes, period. It messes up amateur athletes because you're not paid to be an amateur. That's the difference between a pro athlete and an amateur athlete. I think this whole thing is a huge mistake for college sports. That's just my opinion. We can agree to disagree. I'm not changing my thoughts on that. It's just one of those things. I've done it. I don't feel like I was repressed in any way, that I didn't get to make money off of myself in college. I'm good. I think most other people should be as well. I don't think there was a lot of complaints over the years until the internet came around that people started really complaining about that. So,
well, there was no way for them to monetize themselves on their own. Now they've got social media channels to help do that, and the reach is much larger.
Social media has screwed up a lot of stuff, I think, personally. I love it, and I hate it all at the same time. Social media has made the world a more difficult place to live in, personally. Just my opinion. Anyway, that's another thing that we can go on for hours about, but this stuff just hit a nerve. It hits a nerve with me because I liked the way that college football was before these crazy transfer rules and everything else that they're trying to do now. I think that it's ruining college sports. It's making them pro sports. If we wanted to watch pro sports, there's plenty of games to watch. We loved college football and college sports because we knew that those were amateurs. We didn't have to see commercials with their faces in them. It was just a college football game. It was playing for your school. It was playing for pride. It wasn't playing for money like the NFL, the NBA, MLB, and 10 other organizations. It was playing for the pride of your school, and that was it. And now it's not. When you add all this other stuff into it, free agency, paying players, I mean, I think it's ridiculous. And it kind of is it's a huge turnoff for college sports. And I know I'm not the only one out there. I may be the only one that has balls enough, and I can say balls on this show. I can't say that on other ones, but I can't even say cojones. But anyway, that's another story.
Well, technically you can, but
I could have said balls. I can't say cojones, I guess.
That's right.
But whatever. I may be one of the only people that has the balls to say that, but I do, and that's my opinion, and you can either like my opinion or not. It's just my opinion. I don't care either way, really. So I'm sure we will debate this more and more as time goes on, but it just all of this stuff really hits a nerve with me. It's just the way that it is. So thank you for listening to Andrew's moment of despair, I guess.
Oh boy,
I haven't had a good rant in a long time. So
yeah, you got a couple in tonight.
I
man.
I have had a couple. I'm just kind of in that mood. You know what it was?
What?
This is way off topic, but I'll tell you what really set me off today. First of all, I went to Walmart. That is an experience in itself. I have not been to Walmart in a long time. In fact, especially since this whole COVID thing started, I stopped going to Walmart. One of the reasons why is they ask for your receipt on the way out the door. There's nothing more that I hate than when somebody asks, and let me explain this correctly, because I go to Sam's Club and BJ's and stuff like that where they ask for your receipt at the door. I don't mind that. But at Walmart, at BJ's and Sam's, everybody, and Costco, everybody gets their receipt looked at. Everybody. It's a club. It's just different. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
At Walmart, it seems like only certain people. I watched it today, and I watched 4 people with full carts with way more expensive stuff than I had not get their receipts checked. But when I walk through, I get my receipt checked today. That pisses me off more than anything in the entire world. It just makes me mad. And I say to the person, I'm not showing you my receipt. Call the cops. Do you really think that I'm shoplifting something? Are you accusing me? So,
boy.
Yeah, I was very upset by that today, and it will probably make me not go back to Walmart for a long time again. It's inconsistent, and I'm like, if you think this is what I told the person. I said, if you think that I shoplifted something, call the police. I'll wait right here. Of course, they're not going to do that. But
right.
I just don't understand why it's certain people and why it's not other people. Check everybody's receipt if you're going to check receipts. It's just one of those things that made me extremely mad today. Anyway, sorry.
All right.
That was another
grind to my gears with Andrew.
I know. I probably shouldn't have told that story, but whatever. Stuff like that just makes me mad. And it, I don't know. People will think I'm petty, I'm sure, for being mad about that, but I bet there's a bunch of other people that agree with me as well. So it will be Publix and Aldi and other places besides Walmart for me for a while. Anyway, back to UCF sports, I guess. Maybe we should take a break. Let's take a break real quick, and we'll come back and talk about some more stuff. If you haven't figured it out yet, I love Tijuana Flats. I would love them even if they weren't a partner with us on the Knightline Sports Network. They have all kinds of great Tex-Mex food, and it's fresh, by the way. Made to order burritos, tacos, enchiladas, chimichangas, quesadillas, bowls, nachos, and taco salads. And if you haven't tried the queso, you are completely missing out. It is the best queso that I've ever had in my life. Absolutely hands down. And the sauce bar that they have, everything from wild to mild in there. Absolutely awesome, awesome stuff. Not only do I love the food at Tijuana Flats, but I love the company, a UCF-born company. And they give back to the community with the Justin Queso Foundation. So head to your local Tijuana Flats. Tex-Mex for everyone. Hey Jeep Wrangler owners, have you ever sat in your office at work and watched the rain just pour into your Jeep because the weatherman said that there was a 0 chance of rain? Or you put your doors back on because there was a 100% chance and then not a drop of rain fell? Well, there's a company out there that can help take the worry away and give you the peace of mind to be without your doors. The company's called Life Without Doors. They make waterproof rain curtains and dash covers for Wranglers. Life Without Doors is there to help make the decision to leave the doors at home an easy one. Find out more at lifewithoutdoors.com.
Spice up your company with homemade marketing services from Tasty Gravy Creative. Tasty Gravy serves up a menu of budget-friendly marketing, graphic design, and public relations services customized to your specific goals. Co-owned by a UCF graduate, Tasty Gravy can help refresh your brand, strengthen your online presence, or reinforce your company's message. Contact Tasty Gravy for help with your website, social media, marketing, advertising materials, and more. Visit tastygravy.com.
All right, in this segment, I promise there will not be a rant. There may be. I don't know. Anyway.
They come in droves.
Yeah. Welcome back, folks, from that commercial. We're back, and we're talking about what are we going to talk about this time, Roger? What do we got next?
Championships and literal champions, as we had mentioned before.
This is your literally thing.
Yeah, I've used literal and literally in the same show. So I am the real cool guy here. So thank you, Chad Barr, for pointing that out.
Okay, go ahead.
We haven't talked in a few weeks, but during that span, UCF has had a lot of success. So I wanted to make sure I shouted that out to the teams, of the various teams that have been flying under the radar for some people, but for all of us, just wanted to say how proud we were of them. So we've got 4 conference championships to talk about within that span. One was the number 8 UCF women's tennis team winning their back-to-back undefeated play and tournament championships this year. So in other words, last year and this year, they were undefeated in conference play and won the championship. And they did it in a deciding factor by crushing the Cows, literally 5-1. So great for the ladies of the tennis team. Obviously, they're playing great tennis as their ranking indicates, but to do it in that fashion against the Cows in the championship was amazing. Next on the list was number 11 men's tennis. Were also conference champions. Wow. And this was the first time in program history. So unlike the ladies, this was the first time that the men's team had won the conference championship. So that's super exciting news as they're breaking new ground. Obviously, again, they're ranked number 11, so they're doing something right. For the third straight year, we just talked about UCF men's soccer. They won their tournament and now have won the game against JMU in the NCAA. So we'll be moving into the Sweet 16 for the second year in a row. So excited for them. And then obviously we talked about women's volleyball recently won their conference tournament. Unfortunately, they didn't make it past the first round. So just wanted to give a shout out to all those teams. Had exceptionally successful seasons. The team, the program as a whole is extremely healthy. And the coaches are doing a great job.
Awesome. All righty. I think now it's time for the Tijuana Flats Hot Take of the Week. Welcome to the Tijuana Flats Hot Take of the Week. Visit TijuanaFlats.com for takeout or delivery, or visit your local Tijuana Flats. Tex-Mex for everyone. All right, Roger, I think I'm going to let you do this one this week because I don't have one. I just don't have one. I'll probably have one on Tuesday night because we do this segment on there as well. But right now, I don't have one. So go ahead.
All right, so I'll take the lead and continue with UCF women's tennis as the theme. So for my Tijuana Flats hot take of the week, I'm going to say that UCF women's tennis will make it to the semifinal of the NCAA championships this year. So I almost went out on a limb and said that they were going to make it to the championships this year. But I think for sure, 100%, I think they're going to make the semis. They just have been playing extremely well. The team's well coached. They've kind of been building on what they're doing, and they've been playing great in doubles as well as singles play. So I'm extremely excited about that. And I think they're going to do a great job and make it a long way. So hats off, ladies. I have high expectations for you.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Tijuana Flats, for your help getting all this done and everything as well. Get to Tijuana Flats and get some of that awesome Tex-Mex food. I absolutely love it.
I'm Jeff Allen. Join me each and every week on the Knightline Sports Network for the AAC Report. We bring you in-depth coverage of each school in football, basketball, baseball, softball, soccer, golf, tennis, and more, as well as bring you insider interviews and focus in on the biggest games and news of the week. That's all right here each week on the AAC Report, only on the Knightline Sports Network.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Phegley reminding you to tune in every Tuesday night, 9 to 10 p.m. on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, plus the WDBO app for Knightline at Night. Brought to you by Chad Bar Law. We'll be taking your calls and your texts reacting to the previous week's UCF sports action, and you never know who will show up. Once again, that's Knightline at Night, every Tuesday, 9 to 10 p.m. on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, plus the WDBO app. Go Knights and charge on.
Welcome. This is a promo for the Take a Left at Albuquerque podcast, new to the Knightline Sports Network. You should listen to it. I say things like this.
We need to stop blaming Jerry because we would do the exact same thing if we owned the Dallas freaking Cowboys. Do you know how much fun it is to own the Dallas Cowboys?
My guests will say things sometimes like this.
It's the Lord of the Flies thing that happens when they don't understand that things are wrong, spoiler alert, until Piggy dies.
Lord of the Flies has been out for like 100 years. I don't even know.
Yeah. Sorry to everyone at home who I spoiled the book for. A book's been out for like 90 years or something.
And sometimes, rarely though, I'll say really stupid things like this. If they don't make it out of the West and the Raptors get to the finals, I will go on either this show or whoever's show and say that Kawhi Leonard is overrated because I have too much evidence of it. New episodes drop every Friday with me and some of my good friends right here on the Knightline Sports Network.
And now, news and notes from the world of UCF sports. All right, congratulations to the newly minted college football playoff intern, Tiffany P. Cannot say her last name because if you saw it, I don't think you could say it either. So I'm not even going to try. So as she is the first UCF alumni to work for the college football committee, hopefully she'll help us out a little bit. This name is about, 20 characters and has PH, which, my name has PH as well, but...
So does mine.
Yeah, yours does too. Anyway, I'm not even going to try this because there's probably at least 20 characters. I haven't counted them, but it's a lot.
Folks, I really tried this week to give you guys a good chuckle.
I'm not doing it.
And he totally just totally blipped out. But a smart
Walmart
move on his
ruined
part.
it for all of you.
Because there was no way that I could have said that either. But congratulations
Should I
to
give
Tiffany.
it a try? I'll butcher it, but I'll give it a try.
All right, give it a try.
I think it's Foganyurancha. Something like that. Foganyuracha or something like that. Or Anna. Fogan Farachana. That's Foganrachana. Something like that. Yeah.
That's pretty close.
Something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of syllables in there, though. I'm sure I missed like 5. I'd be interested to see. I may contact her and just tell her to say your name for me.
We want to make sure we say this correctly.
Yeah.
But congratulations to Tiffany.
Absolutely.
All right. UCF baseball took 3 out of 4 from Memphis on the diamond this weekend. Congratulations to the team. Remember, they after a rough start and learning season, they reached 500. So keep the growth going, guys.
All right. And speaking of baseball, unfortunately, Greg Lovelady announced that starting pitcher Colton Gordon is done for the year and is going to have Tommy John surgery. What a bummer. That's a big deal for pitchers, especially. I actually have had that injury, but not had to have the surgery. Thank goodness. It has to be extremely painful for a pitcher to go through that, though.
Yeah, and it takes about a year of recovery. So unfortunately, Colton won't be on the mound for a while. Let's hope for a good recovery. The good news is Tommy John surgery has advanced quite a bit, and in the past, it was basically a death sentence for a career. But the guys now, the surgeries that they're doing now, a lot of guys are bouncing back and going on into the league. So wishing the best for him.
Yeah, also called golfer's elbow by definition as well. That's kind of the injury. You can get it from playing golf as well. If you what happened to me is I dug my club in trying to a little bit far, hitting off of the fairway with a wedge, and you basically tear the ligament on the inside of your elbow, and it is extremely painful. It took me over a year before it stopped hurting, just with exercise and stuff like that. So I can't even imagine that for a baseball player. But that's where you see it the most. Go ahead with your next one there, Roger.
All right. So next on the list, UCF recently announced that the Charge On Tour is back. The dates for the Charge On Tour are as follows. May 12th, they'll be in Fort Lauderdale. May 19th, they'll be in the Space Coast. May 27th, they'll be in Oviedo. And in August, at some point, they'll be back in Orlando. So not as widely distributed as in years past, but glad to see that we're returning to some semblance of normalcy as the Charge On Tour returns.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, the Gus bus is trying to roll into SpaceX Stadium on Saturdays after Gus tweeted Elon Musk to lobby him to sponsor our stadium name. I think this is awesome, by the way. It would be absolutely perfect. We've all seen the shots of the SpaceX rockets and whatever else rockets taking off from our 50-yard line, basically. It would be a match made in heaven or in space. All right, this has been Knightline 255. I'm Andrew Phegley.
And I'm Roger Phipps. Go Knights!
Charge on.
UCF, charge on to the field. With our spirits, we'll never yield. Black and gold charge right through the line. Victory is our cry. B-S-E-T-O-R-Y. Tonight our nights will shine. UCF, Knights. UCF, let's go Knights. UCF, charge on.